On a cold night, where the city ignores those who suffer in the shadows, a homeless veteran battles his own ghosts, until a silent cry cuts through the darkness. In seconds he runs to save an unknown boy, without realizing he's about to change his destiny forever. But what Liam didn't know was that, while he was just trying to survive, a boy was about to die only a few meters away. And in that moment, the invisible man would become the only hope. Liam carried battles no one could see. The streets had become his forced home, and every night forced him to relive memories that the war never allowed to heal. He no longer knew whether he feared death, or feared continuing to live the way he did. But even wounded by life, one instinct inside him never died, the instinct to protect no matter the cost. In a city where haste devours lives and indifference has become routine, there is a man who walks invisible to everyone's eyes. A homeless veteran, abandoned by people, by circumstances, and, on many days, even by hope itself. He asks nothing from the world, not after everything he's seen, everything he's lost, and everything he still carries inside him. Liam Carter learned to survive through silence, through memories that haunt him, and through whatever little he finds on the cold streets. But destiny doesn't care what someone believes they deserve. It simply acts. And on that rainy night, while Liam searched for shelter under a forgotten bridge, something was about to happen. Something that would change his life forever. A few blocks away, a boy walked alone, pushing a broken bicycle. He didn't see the danger coming. He didn't hear the engine. He didn't feel the presence crawling through the dark street. But Liam did. One look was enough to awaken in him something the war never managed to extinguish, the instinct to protect. In 1 second he ran. In 1 second he leaped. In 1 second he pushed the boy out of death's path. What Liam didn't know was that this boy wasn't just any boy. And the car that almost hit them wasn't an accident. That night, the veteran no one saw crossed the line between two worlds, the world of survival and the world of absolute power. And by saving that helpless child, Liam gained the attention, and the debt, of the most feared man in the city. The Mafia boss. A leader whose word is stronger than law. Whose silence is stronger than threat. Whose gratitude is worth more than gold. And so begins the story of a forgotten man, a boy marked by danger, and a father capable of anything to protect the blood of his family. A story where every action has consequences, every choice opens a new path, and every life saved can change the destiny of all. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Your energy supports this space and connects us even more with emotional stories. On a night when the wind felt sharp enough to cut skin and the rain refused to give anyone a moment of peace, the city pulsed with an almost cruel urgency. The streets glimmered like shattered mirrors, reflecting rushing headlights, umbrellas flipped inside out by the wind, and people running without ever looking back. Every step echoed as if the world were always trying to escape from something, or someone. The sound of rain hitting rooftops blended with distant horns, muffled sirens, and fragments of conversations carried away by the cold wind. It was an ordinary night for those who had a home, but for the ones lost in the shadows, it was just another silent battle. The alleys were soaked, the lights flickered as if afraid to go out, and the air carried that kind of sadness no one admits to feeling. It was the kind of night when no one notices anything beyond themselves. But destiny sometimes chooses moments like this to move its pieces. And in that cold city, hidden beneath a heavy cloak of rain, something was about to happen. Something that would transform not just one night, but an entire life under the bridge, where the city dumped everything it preferred to forget. Liam Carter sheltered himself from the cold as best as he could. Water dripped from the beams above, forming small puddles that reflected the faint glow of distant streetlights. The torn blanket he clung to didn't warm his body, but it was the last piece of dignity he had left. There, far from the rush and comfort others called life, Liam lived each day as a silent battle. It wasn't just the cold that consumed him, it was the memories. Explosions that still echoed in his mind, faces he never saw again, and the weight of decisions the war had carved into his chest. The city saw him as invisible, but for him, invisibility was almost a relief. It was easier to be ignored than to answer the questions no one truly wanted to ask. Amid the distant noise of cars, the veteran closed his eyes, trying to find peace in a world that no longer seemed to have a place for him. And yet, within that heavy silence, something stirred. An old sensation, an instinct he thought had died along with the life he lost on the battlefield. A few blocks away, while the city remained indifferent to the chaos about to unfold, a boy struggled with his broken bicycle. The crooked handlebars shook from side to side, and the stuck pedal creaked as if protesting each frustrated attempt to make it work. Soaked by the rain, the boy seemed unaware of anything except the rusted metal in his hands. He was so focused on fixing that little problem that the world around him simply vanished. He didn't notice the headlights reflecting in the puddles, he didn't hear the distant roar of an engine pushing harder than it should, and he didn't realize the street he walked was becoming increasingly dangerous. His steps were short, hurried, innocent, guided only by the hope of fixing something that, in that moment, was his only concern. It was the kind of distraction any child would have, but also the kind destiny takes advantage of without mercy. And while the boy insisted on fixing the bicycle as if nothing else existed, danger advanced through the city with the cold precision of something that doesn't announce itself, doesn't warn, it simply arrives. With every passing second, the boy approached a point of no return, without having the slightest idea. As the boy walked, completely lost in his desperate attempt to fix the bicycle, a new sound began rising at the corner of the street. It was the deep growl of an engine, heavy, powerful, rushing much faster than that narrow, rain-soaked road could safely handle. The car first appeared as a distorted glow reflected in the puddles, a pair of headlights slicing through the darkness like sharp blades. Then, in a sudden movement, the vehicle swung into the curve. The black body of the car, gleaming under the rain, slid across the wet asphalt as if it were part of the city's own shadow. With each meter traveled, the sound grew more aggressive, more urgent, more threatening. It was the kind of speed that didn't belong to quiet nights. It was the kind of speed that announced danger. The car advanced without hesitation, without slowing, as if nothing could stop it. And the boy, bent over his bicycle, remained oblivious to the danger rushing toward him. He didn't see the growing light, didn't hear the sound closing in, didn't feel the warm wind beginning to push the rain aside. For him, the world was still just a broken bicycle. But for Destiny, that was the exact moment everything would change. It was in that critical instant, when the city seemed to hold its breath, that something awakened inside Liam Carter. An old instinct, buried beneath years of pain and silence, broke through the surface with the force of a scream no one heard. He didn't think. He didn't assess the risk. His body simply reacted, as if he were still on the battlefield where every second meant life or death. Liam burst out from beneath the bridge in a fierce impulse, his feet splashing through cold puddles as he ran with every bit of strength left in his tired body. The boy, still crouched over the bicycle, noticed nothing, neither the frantic footsteps approaching nor the violent glare of headlights swallowing the street. But Liam saw, and seeing for him had always meant acting. With one final leap, he launched himself forward, breaking through the curtain of rain as if tearing through time itself. His arms wrapped around the boy, pulling him with brutal urgency out of the car's trajectory. The warm gust of the speeding vehicle passed so close it felt like it could rip the air from their lungs. Then came silence. A heavy, absolute silence, filled only by the trembling breaths of two survivors. In that moment, as the car vanished into the darkness without even slowing down, Liam knew he had just changed a life. And maybe, without realizing it, he had changed his own. The silence after the rescue didn't last long. While the boy struggled to catch his breath and Liam still felt his heart pounding like a wild drum, a new sound began to fill the street. It wasn't the usual rumble of distant cars. It was heavy, steady, calculated. Powerful engines pushing water aside, tires slicing through the wet asphalt with precise direction, as if following a destiny written long before. Within seconds, two black cars appeared around the curve, so identical they looked like reflections of each other. Their lights cut through the rain with almost military precision. They didn't slow down gently. They didn't approach with caution. They braked all at once, skidding slightly on the wet ground, closing in on Liam and the boy with the perfection of a maneuver practiced for years. The doors opened simultaneously, and men in dark suits stepped out into the storm. Tall, stern, with expressions hardened by something far beyond ordinary work. They didn't run toward the boy, they advanced. Firm, determined, like bodyguards who had finally found what they feared they had lost. The boy's eyes widened, but he showed no fear. It was as if he recognized them. And in that instant, Liam realized these men weren't there by chance. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't bad luck. It was destiny arriving in black cars, ready to reveal truths he never imagined he would touch. Even surrounded by the men in dark suits, the boy didn't look away from Liam. It was a different look, intense, larger than his age should allow. There was fear in it, but also something deeper, recognition, gratitude, and maybe even a hope he didn't yet understand. As the bodyguards tried to usher him into the car, the boy gripped one man's arm with surprising strength, resisting the silent order to leave without looking back. His eyes shone beneath the rain, reflecting the shock of someone who had nearly lost his life and at the same time, found an unexpected protector. He turned his face toward Liam one last time, and in that instant the street disappeared. There were no cars, no rain, no fear. Only the connection between two destinies the universe insisted on tying together. The boy's gaze seemed to apologize for not being able to stay, and at the same time, beg Liam not to vanish again into the shadows of the city. It was the kind of look no one forgets, the kind that carries words a child doesn't yet know how to speak. And in that simple gesture, as silent as it was powerful, Liam understood that the boy wasn't just someone he had saved. He was someone who, in some way, had just saved him too. The next morning, when the city finally slowed down after the storm, Liam walked alone through a forgotten alley, searching for something to eat among wet boxes and torn bags. It was just another day like the others, the kind of silent routine no one noticed. But this time, something shifted. A smooth, distinct engine sound echoed through the narrow passage. Not the tired rumble of an old car, but a clean, powerful motor that seemed to move the air around it. Before Liam could react, a long, gleaming black limousine entered the alley as if guided by an invisible map. Its presence clashed with everything there, the dirt, the loneliness, the poverty. The front door opened slowly, and two men in dark suits stepped out with firm, precise movements, without a hint of hesitation. They looked directly at Liam, not with disgust nor pity, but with purpose. As if standing before the exact man they had been searching for. One of them approached, his expression carved by responsibility. Then he spoke the words that shattered the life Liam had known. "Liam Carter, the Don wants to speak with you." And in that moment, the entire world seemed to fall silent. The limousine moved through the city as if it were opening a path between two worlds, the misery Liam knew, and the power he never imagined touching. When the iron gates finally opened, the veteran held his breath. Before him rose a mansion that looked more like a kingdom. Golden lights illuminated every detail, reflecting off enormous windows, polished marble, and gardens so perfect they seemed unreal. Armed men patrolled the grounds with synchronized footsteps, alert to every shadow, every movement. It was a place where nothing happened by accident. Where every wall held secrets only the powerful could bear. Entering the main hall, Liam felt a silent pressure in the air, a blend of wealth, authority, and danger. The floor shone like liquid glass, chandeliers hovered like private constellations, and the echo of the guard's footsteps seemed to announce that something monumental was about to unfold. Here Liam was not just a guest. He was someone who had crossed an invisible line. The mansion exuded respect and fear. And behind all the luxury, Liam sensed the presence of a man whose influence moved the entire city. It was to meet this man that he had been brought. The leader. The Don. A name no one dared speak lightly. And now Liam approached him, not as a subordinate, but as someone who had saved what the Don treasured most. Liam waited in silence at the center of the hall, surrounded by guards who didn't blink or look away for even a second. The room seemed to breathe differently, as if every wall, every chandelier, and every shadow knew something significant was about to unfold. Then the firm sound of footsteps echoed through the main corridor. Not hurried, not hesitant. Steps of a man who never had to run, because the world ran for him. Slowly the Don's figure emerged, outlined by the warm light behind him. Vittorio Mancini. A name that carried equal parts weight, respect, and fear. His face was calm, but his eyes were silent blades sharpened by a lifetime in power. He walked toward Liam with the posture of a king evaluating an unknown warrior. The entire hall seemed to bow to his presence. There were no introductions. No formal greetings. The Don simply studied Liam for long seconds, as if reading every scar, every shadow, every story behind his eyes. And when he finally spoke, his voice didn't need to rise to dominate the room. "You saved my son," he said with the firmness of a man who wastes no words. It wasn't a simple thank you. It wasn't courtesy. It was recognition. And in that instant, Liam realized he was standing before the most feared man in the city, but also before a father who had nearly lost everything. The silence between Liam and the Don was so heavy it seemed to fill the entire hall. Vittorio Mancini was not a man of detours. His reputation was built on swift decisions and unbreakable loyalties. He stepped forward, approaching Liam like someone who evaluates not just a savior, but a potential ally. His eyes, intense and calculating, traced every detail of the veteran, not with distrust, but with the curiosity of a man who has finally found something rare. When the Don spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a promise. "My son is alive because of you," he said. "In my world, a life saved is not just a gesture, it is an eternal debt." The guards around them kept their rigid posture, as if witnessing the forming of a silent pact. Vittorio continued, "Tell me what you want. Money, shelter, a fresh start, protection so you never sleep on the streets again. Anything." His words held no arrogance, only a raw truth. The Don always paid his debts and he paid them well. Liam felt a different weight grow inside his chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pride. It was the strange sensation of someone who, after being forgotten for so long, suddenly stood before possibilities he never imagined having again. The Don's offer was not merely generosity. It was an invitation to walk through the door of a new destiny. Liam remained still in front of the Don's grand offer. It was as if each word, each promise of a completely different life, echoed within him with a weight no gift could carry. Most people, standing before such an opportunity, would have asked for wealth, comfort, immediate safety. But Liam was not like most. He had lived long enough to know that none of that could erase the scars he carried, nor bring back the man he had once been. After a long, almost solemn silence, Liam lifted his gaze, not in defiance but in raw honesty. "I don't want money," he said, his voice steady even if low, "or privileges. I just want a job." The guards exchanged surprised looks, unable to understand why someone would refuse the chance to change everything at once. But the Don understood. He saw in the man before him something most people overlooked: dignity, courage, the desire to rise on his own feet, even after being knocked down by life countless times. "A job," Vittorio repeated, as if savoring the honesty in the request. "Is that truly all you want?" Liam nodded. "I just need a chance. An opportunity to be useful, to be someone again." The declaration, so simple yet so profound, crossed the hall like a silent oath. In that instant, the Don no longer saw a homeless man, but a whole man, forged in pain and capable of true loyalty. And that was exactly the kind of man he respected. Liam's words hung in the air like something rare within those walls, something almost unheard of in a mansion where power, money, and influence solved everything. The Don stood still for a few seconds, studying the veteran as if trying to decipher every layer behind that simple, yet monumental, choice. Then, slowly, something unexpected happened. The corners of Vittorio Mancini's lips curved into a discreet smile, almost imperceptible but loaded with meaning. It wasn't a mocking smile nor one of surprise. It was a smile of respect, admiration, recognition, from a man who saw another man not by his appearance, but by the value of his character. The guards seemed unsettled by the reaction, trading glances as if needing confirmation that they weren't imagining it. The Don took one more step toward Liam, closing the distance. "It has been a long time, Vittorio said, with a sincerity heavy as stone, since anyone has asked me for something so honest. The silence that followed wasn't threatening, it was profound. It felt as though, for a brief moment, two completely different worlds had found common ground. Liam, a man accustomed to surviving in invisibility, saw in that smile something he hadn't felt in years: genuine recognition. And for the first time in a very long time, something inside him, hardened by cold nights and war memories, began to warm. It was the beginning of a change he never saw coming, yet one already in motion. The silence in the hall was shattered by light, hurried footsteps echoing down the corridor like an inevitable calling. Before any guard could react, the door swung open and Daniel, the boy rescued the night before, appeared, his eyes still marked by the scare but carrying a new kind of brightness. Without hesitation he ran straight to Liam. There was no pause, no fear, no doubt. The boy simply threw himself into the veteran's arms, hugging him tightly like someone holding on to life itself. The impact was unexpected. Liam went rigid for a second, unable to comprehend how that boy, surrounded by wealth and protection, could cling to him with such need. Daniel gripped the veteran's soaked coat as if silently begging him to never disappear again. "I knew they would come for you," the boy said, voice trembling between relief and emotion. Hearing those words cracked something deep inside Liam, and at the same time began to rebuild it. It was rare, almost impossible, to be touched by someone after years living in the shadows, ignored by the entire city. And yet, there was that child, seeing in him not a stranger, not a homeless man, not an unknown figure, but a hero. The embrace lasted only a few seconds, but it marked Liam in a way even the war hadn't. For the first time in many years he felt he could still matter to someone. And that feeling, simple and pure, was worth more than anything the Don had offered. The Don watched the embrace between his son and the veteran with an expression few ever had the privilege to witness. There was no hardness, no coldness, none of the impenetrable authority he was feared for. There was silence and recognition. Vittorio Mancini stepped forward, his posture carrying decades of power, and stopped beside them as if standing before something destiny itself had stitched together. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, but his eyes never left Liam. "My son is alive because of you," he said, his tone a mix of gratitude and promise. "And in my home, whoever protects family blood, becomes family as well." The words didn't echo only in the hall, they echoed inside the veteran like a sea splitting open. The guards, used to seeing the Don act with unshakable firmness, subtly lifted their heads, as if witnessing the creation of a powerful bond. Daniel still held Liam's fingers, afraid he would vanish if he let go. And Liam, a man used to being invisible, felt a strange sense of belonging rise inside him for the first time in years. It wasn't charity. It wasn't debt. It was acceptance, respect. A silent invitation to leave the shadows and step into a new world. There, in that hall full of stories that would never be told, Liam Carter stopped being just a survivor of the streets. He became part of something bigger, part of a family he never imagined he could have. That night, when the movement in the mansion finally slowed and the corridors fell into a near-sacred silence, Liam found a rare moment to breathe. He stood before a large window, watching the rain slide down the glass as if the night itself were crying out the remnants of everything that had happened. And there, in the distorted reflection on the shining surface, he saw not only the man he was now, but the man he had once been. A soldier. A protector. A forgotten survivor. Life on the streets had erased his hope, fragmented his identity, and reduced his existence to a daily fight for scraps of dignity. But now, in a place he never imagined he'd stand, something within him began to settle. As he remembered Daniel's embrace, the Don's words, and the way those powerful men looked at him without disgust or pity, Liam understood something simple yet profound. Sometimes destiny chooses the most unexpected moment to reignite the flame we believed had died. Perhaps it wasn't coincidence. Perhaps it wasn't luck. Perhaps, after walking alone for so long, he had finally found a purpose. Not because someone handed it to him, but because he had earned it. For the first time in many years, Liam Carter allowed himself to feel something he thought impossible. The quiet sensation that his life was not over. While Liam was still contemplating his reflection, believing for a moment that he had finally found a place where he could breathe, something outside moved within the shadows. Far beyond the mansion's tall walls, where the rain turned everything into blurred silhouettes, a figure stood still, watching. It wasn't one of the Don's guards. It wasn't a member of the family. It was someone who should not be there. The lightning cutting across the sky illuminated, for a fraction of a second, the dark shape of a hooded man leaning against a post, as if he were waiting or analyzing. His eyes, narrow and sharp, weren't watching the mansion as a whole, only one specific point. Liam. The figure didn't breathe like someone curious. He breathed like someone who knew silence. Someone used to moving unseen. With every step Liam took inside the mansion, the shadow followed with precision, as if studying his movements, memorizing his presence, calculating every possibility. It was a cruel contrast. While the veteran felt the first spark of hope in years, danger was already approaching him slowly, like a serpent waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the gate lights flashed on, the figure vanished just as quickly as he had appeared, swallowed by the darkness. Liam, unaware of the gaze stalking him, took a deep breath, believing he was safe. He had no idea the night held secrets even the Don could not control, and that his life was about to be tested once again. The next morning, Liam was summoned to the Don's office, a large, silent room where every object seemed placed with the purpose of displaying power and history. Vittorio Mancini stood before a desk full of documents, but his eyes weren't on the papers. They were fixed on a small screen showing images captured by the perimeter cameras, images of the hooded figure watching the mansion. "He's back," the Don said, his voice heavy, like someone revealing a ghost that had never truly been buried. Liam stepped closer, feeling the atmosphere shift, the air growing denser with every word. Vittorio continued, "That man, he is not just my enemy. He is a threat to everything I built. And now, he is also a threat to you." The veteran remained in silence, absorbing the gravity of it. "His name is Salvatore Rizzo," the Don explained. "An old ally, who became an enemy. He has tried to strike at me in every way. But now he has found a new weak point." The Don lifted his eyes, sharp, steady, unyielding. "You." A chill ran down Liam's spine, but he didn't look away. Vittorio stepped toward him and finished. "You stepped into my family, and that makes you part of my world. And in my world no one goes unprotected. But also, no one stays out of the war." The revelation wasn't just a warning. It was a choice. The enemy was watching, and Liam's fate had just become entwined with that of a Don surrounded by dangerous shadows. In the days that followed, the mansion changed. What once seemed like a simple symbol of power now transformed into a silent fortress. Guards reinforced every entrance, vehicles came and went at calculated times, and meetings took place behind closed doors. At the center of it all, Liam walked with a new posture, not bent by the weight of the streets anymore, but lifted by the responsibility he had accepted. He trained alongside the Don's men, relearning skills the war had buried, feeling his old reflexes awaken like sleeping beasts. With every strike, every step, every repeated tactic, he stopped being the forgotten man under the bridge, and became a crucial piece in the defense of that family. Meanwhile, the Don watched from a distance, knowing the threat wasn't just against him, but against everything he loved. "Salvatore won't stop," Vittorio said one night, staring at the map lit up on the table. "He wants to destroy everything I built. And now, he wants to destroy you as well." Liam nodded without fear. The veteran wasn't seeking war, but he wouldn't run from it either. He knew the confrontation was inevitable, and this time he wouldn't be fighting for orders, flags, or nations. He would fight for something far more rare, people who finally believed in him. The rain returned outside as if the world were preparing for a new chapter. And as thunder rolled across the city, Liam Carter realized the truth. The war had never left him, it had only waited for the right moment to call him back. Sometimes life leads us down paths we never imagined walking. Liam began this journey as a man forgotten by the city, and ended up discovering that even the most tired hearts can find a new purpose when they least expect it. The courage he had on that rainy night changed not only the destiny of a boy, but his own as well. And maybe this story is a quiet reminder for all of us. Even on the darkest days, there is a reason to keep going. There is someone you can save. There is something inside you that can still be reborn. If this message touched your heart, leave your comment below. Write 0707 to show that you received this energy. Like this video so more people can find this story, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Thank you for being here. Your presence is what keeps this story alive.